I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV. And our guest today is EricHolch. Eric is here wearing his hat as an artist primarily. I thought it would be fun to talk about what it's like to be an artist on Nantucket, obviously how you got into it and so forth, and you also have a gallery. And the purpose is not really to promote the gallery, but the purpose is just get people to understand the process, if you will. So you've been coming to Nantucket for a long time, Eric.
Yeah, I was a summer kid for my whole life, and then moved here in sort of the early mid-90s. Opened up a gallery. I used to be in the early days. We're talking 70s. I was at the Main Street Gallery with Reggie Levine, and then George Davis opened up a gallery. It was a cooperative gallery in. It used to be the Munson Gallery. It's now Slip 14. It's gone through, but I was there for 15 years, and it was George Davis, Bruce Diltz, Cynthia Lyman, myself, Sybil Goldsmith. We all sort of chipped in $1,000 and started it, and that's all it took. And then George ran it for 15 years. And then I bounced around a couple of galleries on the wharf, and then I realized the only way I was going to really have visibility was to just have my own place. So,
but let's go back. How did you get started as an artist?
Well, I used to be in advertising. I was in advertising for 25 years, and in the early days, I went to my boss and said, "I need a raise. I need a new car." And he said, "Go wait tables." And I'm like, "Thanks, thanks for the support." And so I was trying to figure out what else can I do, to make some money. And so I'd been in art.
Did you start when you were?
I was in college. In high school I won some art award, and then in college I did a lot of art.
Who was your inspiration when you were a kid?
Well, my parents lived on Cliff Road, and Roy Bailey lived across the street, and so Roy was a good friend of my parents, and my parents had a thing in their house where every house guest had to paint a painting. So we had a wall in our house on Cliff Road that was just all paintings from house guests. So art was just a part of my. My mother was a fashion designer and was an artist, and so it was just part of my life, and
part of your genetic makeup.
Yeah, it really was. And
somehow I had that, but it didn't work for me.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah, different things take through the generations, right. And I've got some grandchildren that I think are going to be great artists, and others that aren't. So, but so I just started doing it as sort of a therapy. I hated to leave Nantucket in the fall when I had my real job, and so I'd start painting, and I'd paint the beach, and when you're painting the beach, you're at the beach, and so it was just a wonderful. And then they started to sell, and so now you're like, okay, this is kind of fun, and there was an artist, Bobby Bouchon, who did the 4 seasons of Nantucket. And they used to sell at the looms. And my dad gave me Fall, which was a wind fence. And I just loved the look of silk screening. And so I was painting at the time.
This was about when?
Early 70s. I was newly married, new job, broke, just trying to.
So that's when you started in on your sort of current course.
Exactly. And then I hired a gal to teach me how to do silk screening, because I thought that would be a fun thing to learn how to do. And so I did that, and I brought those prints. I'd had paintings at Main Street Gallery, but then I brought prints up, and started selling the prints. That was my first print.
I brought an example.
Oh, you did?
I did.
My first print was 1970.
You may remember this.
Yeah, sure.
But
those were the little guys. My first ones were huge. Were really big, and.
Well, I thought this was manageable.
Yeah,
the bigger ones are hard to.
Yeah.
But I think they illustrate the difference in your style from most people, and the vibrancy of the colors that you use, even though these are not as colorful as some of yours, but
well, it's oil-based paint on cotton paper, so it's paint, and whereas a lot of posters and things are printed, they fade. These don't fade, so they stay vibrant, and because it is paint, it's vibrant, and but it's fun. Yeah, so I started in the 70s, and then in '93 I opened up a gallery on Old South Wharf, my own, and I've been 2 places on the wharf, each one for about, actually I think I'm 25 years. I've had my own
how much
gallery.
time do you actually spend painting now?
Well, when I was doing these really large ones, it would take me about 4 or 5 months to produce one big, large silkscreen, because just the drawing part of it, the composition part of it, took months, and then once you got the drawing right, because once you start cutting film, you can't improvise, really. You can a little bit, but it's not like an oil painting where you can go back and take out a cloud, put in another one. So you pretty much have to stick to your composition once you figured it out, and the way I do it with cut film. And so
What is that? What is cut film?
well, you're cutting films for each stencil. Each color has its own stencil, and you print each color one by one. So you print, let's say you're doing an edition of 100, you have to start off with maybe 150 pieces of paper because you're going to screw up. So you print 150 skies, just one color. Then you come back and print, 45, sand, and you keep laying color on top of color. And so eventually, and they have to dry in between each color. So that process, the printing process, takes a while.
How if you're doing a print of 100 with, say, 8 colors, is that a 10?
Well, if you're doing it yourself, it's going to be 8 days, maybe more. It depends on, they have to dry, and you have to put them in, you screen them, and then you put them in racks, and they dry, and you normally can't come back the same day and do the next color. You normally want to wait the next day. And then paper expands and contracts a lot, big paper. So some days,
especially in this climate.
Yeah, so if it's raining, it can expand 1/4 of an inch, and that'll throw off the color that you have cut. So it's a challenging medium, but
do you print them yourself, or
I've worked with a guy in Boston for I've been doing this now for about 35 years, and I probably the first 4 I did in my parents' basement in Connecticut, and I just had prints all over the floor. I didn't have racks or anything, and I learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes on that first one, but it won all kinds of awards and sold out, so that was sort of inspiration to keep doing this. Then I did the next 3 in the basement, and the problem was I would go to galleries and I'd say, I'd love to have a show, and they'd say, well, we need about 10 pieces, and I didn't have 10 because by the time I did my second print, the first one had sold out, and then by the time I did the third print, now the second one had sold out. I mean, these are good problems to have, but I never had a body of work.
You never had a real inventory.
Yeah, so I went to a silkscreen, an industrial silkscreen place in Stamford, Connecticut, and I sort of convinced the guy to do fine art, and he liked my work, and so he would sort of, on the weekends or whatever, shut the place down, and he was silk screening like electronic printing boards and signs and that sort of thing, and he loved it. So I was with him for 10 years until I wanted to start doing blends, and he really didn't want to get into the blends, because I'm now kind of pushing the envelope a little of silk screening and exploring the medium. So I started working with a guy outside of Boston, and I've been working with him ever since. And it's he's terrific. He's an artist in his own right, and so he really understood silk screening. So what I would do is I'd cut all the films, and then I would go to Boston and just spend a week with a friend, and we would just crank, we just, do it. And he used to be on Harrison Avenue on right next to the Pine Street Inn, and Chinatown, above the Hunan Noodle Factory, and then he moved to the Waltham watch factory building, which was cool. And so we've been doing this for a long time.
And at some point, you got into neckties and boxer shorts and
jigsaw
puzzles.
Yeah,
and
that was I used to show at a show at the Javits Center in New York, and it was for 4 days. It was open to the public, and it was just sort of like a sidewalk art show in New York City in the Javits Center. And then, but the first 2 days were for commerce, for so gallery owners that were looking to represent new artists were coming through. People that needed designs for towels or cards or ice buckets or whatever. They're wandering around looking for new artists. And this fellow who had the tie company walked by my booth, and he saw one print that he said, "Wow, that would make a great tie." And it was it's called Dinghy Madness, and it had dinghies, but they were cut off by the print. And so he said, if you would just do the art and finish the dinghies, then I'll put that repeat pattern on a tie. So that's how I got in the tie business. It was a successful tie, and then I sent him the Rainbow Fleet. I was working on a print called Rainbow Fleet, and I sent him I did a tie design and sent it to him, and it's still in the line after like 25 years. It's the best-selling tie they've ever had. And at that point, he just said, just keep them coming. So I've probably designed 100 or more ties. I don't know. I mean, I've not doing as much now. The tie company got sold. Another company.
People don't wear as many ties.
Well, people don't wear as many ties, but another company, an online company called Ties.com, bought Allen Neckwear, and Allen Neckwear still exists, but instead of doing new ties, since the old company had sold all its inventory, they're sort of slowly bringing the old designs back. So I'm still selling them in the gallery, and people do still buy them, but yeah, not as much as they used to. I'm glad it's...
What about the boxer shorts?
That was great fun, and that was just tie. It was fun because originally I just took tie designs, put them on boxer shorts, and then they said, would you design some boxer designs just for boxers? So I did the family jewels and twigs and berries and a whole bunch of fun boxer designs. So that was kind of fun. But then, believe it or not, when this downturn in the economy, the company in China that made the boxers wasn't getting enough business to stay in business. And so the only boxer manufacturers left in China, you had to order 100,000 boxers. Yeah. And so I no longer design boxers.
What about jigsaw puzzles? Are you still doing those?
Yeah, still do those. They're published now by a company in England called Wentworth. They're wooden jigsaw puzzles. I mean, they're beautiful jigsaw puzzles. And I've been, there was a jigsaw puzzle craze in Japan in the 80s. And I had tons of jigsaw puzzles back then in Japan. I mean, I would license them to Japan. But then I would buy them for the gallery. And then there was a company called U.S. Puzzle Company or something, and they did some puzzles, cardboard puzzles. But then I've been doing, I work with Stave, I worked with Wentworth, Elms puzzles. They're all wooden puzzles. And yeah, they're fun. People that like puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles, and these have whimsical designs in them. And so they're sort of heirloom puzzles. You can do them over and over again. And they're like the old par puzzles that are in a lot of old Nantucket summer homes.
If you don't find enough here to keep you busy from the art front, which I think you do, your other passion is sailing, is it not?
Yep, that's I love sailing. It's I just love being on the water. Yeah. So I'm out sailing as many days as I can. It's really therapy, I think. I think it's like meditation, and you can sort of you know, when you're out sailing, you have to spend just enough of your brain's whatever keeping the sailboat going that everything else kind of falls away, and so it's a lot of fun, and so I love to sail up here, and then I sail with our friend Alfie Sanford, whose boat is all over the world, and so we fly over and sail with him, and used to do a lot of racing. Used to charter 12 meters and race in 12-meter regattas and stuff, but I'm sort of over racing right now. So I'm just, getting lazy and enjoying sailing.
That's all right. But you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good. I recommend it for everybody. It's, community sailing. I was one of the guys that started that, and that's been a huge success. I mean, it's just so much fun that, when we started, we had like 150 kids, and I think 22% were island kids. Now we have about 1,500 kids, and 30% are island kids.
Which is great.
So it's really got taken off, and
the sailing team for the high school.
Yeah, it's been just really fun to see, and I just think sailing's it's now not a rich man's sport. You can just go down and rent one or join the family membership at the Jetties Beach, and they've got great boats, and I just think sailing's a fun family thing. Luckily, my son sails, my son-in-law sails, everybody sails, so it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Eric, thank you very much. Eric
You're
Holch,
welcome.
Artist and sailor. Delighted to have you with us.
Thank you kindly.